Now, as more and more countries around the world look to lock down their cities, China, very interestingly, the place where this virus originated, has now come out and said that it will be lifting all of these restrictions in the Hubei province after nearly about 2 months of a lockdown. In the last 24 hours, China has not reported even a single case of what is described as a local transmission. But there are 47 fresh cases of foreign origin infections that have been reported across the country. Starting from the 8th of April, the residents from the city of Wuhan will be allowed to leave the city. That is in another fortnight's time. Now, in other parts of Hubei, people have already started to arrive on trains which are operational once again. Many residents of Hubei were locked out of their home province and therefore had to spend nearly about 2 months elsewhere. Many returnees are planning to stay in self-quarantine for another 14 days before venturing out. The restaurants have also started opening up after a 2-month lockdown. Owners are taking all precautions, including a temperature test for all of its customers. Local eateries across China were dealt a major blow due to the viral outbreak. In a symbolic move, the Great Wall of China has also reopened for visitors. The visitors have been asked to book tickets in advance and their temperatures are being checked before they enter. So far, one-way circuit tour has been announced in one section of the Great Wall. Now, another country that's also winning the COVID-19 battle, but with a very different model in terms of how it went about preventing the infections, is South Korea. In the last 24 hours, there was only a single instance of a fatality that was reported, and just about 100 new cases. Of these, 34 are said to be foreign travelers. So South Korea's universal testing method seems to have halted community transmission in the country. The country has also announced tighter restrictions for people coming in from the United States. Travelers from the United States will be asked to download a smartphone app to track their symptoms. And for travelers from Europe, there is a 2-week mandatory quarantine period when and if they enter into South Korea. Now, to give us more perspective in terms of what's actually playing out on the ground, we are joined in by Bruce Harrison. I'm told that he's joining us live from Seoul. Good afternoon to you, Bruce. This of course is a turning point in terms of how the infections have spread in China and also in South Korea. I would want to start off by asking you about what the situation is presently like within what was the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak, the Hubei province. Give us a sense of what is playing out there. Is life slowly returning to normalcy there?
Well, in terms of Hubei province, life is still far from returning to normal. Obviously, China feels confident it is on the right track to beating the coronavirus. They're reporting very few, if any, locally transmitted cases now, and that includes within Hubei province and the hardest hit region of Wuhan. In fact, they're focused more on imported cases now. That's travelers coming to China, whether Chinese nationals or foreigners. But still, because of how devastating the impact was in that province, Hubei province, people are still living very cautiously and things are slow to get back to normal. There's still not a sense of ease there. For instance, like you would see in South Korea, where people hunkered down for several weeks. They were very cautious, stayed at home, avoid eating out, social distancing. But now you're seeing more people, just like these folks over my shoulder here, getting back out on the streets, especially as the weather gets warmer.
Absolutely, indeed. Now, as the outbreak of the coronavirus infection spreads to different countries around the world, a lot of countries are actually looking at what has happened, one, in the Hubei province in terms of how it has gone about controlling the infections. And the other example and the other model that people are talking about is what happened in South Korea. Now, diametrically opposite to what happened in the Hubei province, where the entire province was put under a strict lockdown. In the case of South Korea, what was practiced was universal testing so that those who are infected could be isolated and then quarantined. So, this appears to have been pretty successful in Seoul. You were talking to us about, how life is in much better in Seoul. So give us a sense as to how confident South Korea feels that this is a method of containing the transmission that could be replicated in other parts of the world.
No doubt the technology and the ability to test rapidly and test so many people has helped flatten the curve here. And that's partly because South Korea, early on, I'm talking January, when they knew what was happening in China, private companies started producing hundreds of thousands of testing kits and stockpiling them. So when the major outbreaks did occur here, the country was able to respond much more quickly than, say, the United States with a mass testing program. And it's so important because you're able to, once confirm a positive case, track the with technology that exists here and cooperation from the government as well as the public, track contacts the positive patients may have been in contact with to help find more people who've been infected, test them as well, and then get them all in isolation. This cycle has played out time and time again, and it helps. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's far too soon to say that South Korea is over the hump. It has beat this virus. There was just 100 new cases, down from 900 at the peak at one point, but that's still far from zero. And these cases are appearing more and more in Seoul, the metro area where I am right now. And that is raising concerns that there could be a resurgence at some point.
And also, how much of a role is social distancing playing in South Korea in containing this virus?
Well, you can see behind me right now, there's not too many people out on this street, actually. It's the middle of the afternoon, and people are still a bit cautious about coming out, gathering in large groups. But one thing that really makes Korea stand out, especially compared to Western countries, is the mask wearing. It's the ability to get masks more easily. There's many more available. And then on top of that, just a comfort and general ease of wearing them. People here wear masks on a regular basis to begin with because of the air pollution. Now, I know scientists say that the mask won't prevent all airborne bacteria or viruses from entering, and that they're not necessarily the most effective tool, but it does help to an extent. And if a country like the United States was to adopt a more productive approach or something like that, people were more willing to wear masks. That could also perhaps help impact that curve as well.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Bruce Harrison, for joining us from Seoul and getting us all of those inside. Do stay safe because the outbreak is still far from over.